Okay, we are in Senate institutions. Today is Friday, May 8th, 2026. And we are later than we expected to be because the floor went long. We have one item, which is to discuss with John Mura, the Commissioner of the Corrections Department, about his job so far and what you're thinking about it and how it's going. And so I expect this to be a relatively informal conversation, and you can certainly suggest items. You don't need to just wait for us.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Madam Chair, for having me. Yes, I'm John Murad. I'm the Commissioner for the Vermont Department of Corrections. And I am grateful to all of you for being in such a long Senate session. That is what we, the people in Vermont, have asked you to do. And I know these days get long for you all as well. I was appointed as the interim commissioner of corrections by Governor Scott on August 15th of 2025. So about 8-ish months ago. And about 2-ish months ago, I was confirmed by the governor that he removed the interim part of the title. Those 8 months have been really exciting and I have really enjoyed them. I had a 20-year career in law enforcement prior to coming to this job. I had been held a number of ranks in the New York City Police Department, ending as an assistant commissioner there under a really great leader that I knew, Bill Bratton. I spent 2 years in the private sector with Commissioner Bratton as his chief of staff, building a risk company where we dealt with non-economic risk, a consultancy. And then I returned to public service as first deputy chief of operations and then as the chief of police with the Burlington Police Department here in Vermont. I was born in Burlington in Vermont. I grew up in Vermont. My parents lived here, and coming back to Vermont with my family was something that I really had wanted to do and was grateful for the chance to do it and the chance to return to public service. I took a large pay cut from that private sector job in order to go back to policing because I really do believe in the value of helping our neighbors and helping each other. I think it's a noble calling. This job, I spent 5 years in Burlington as chief of police. They were tumultuous years, the pandemic, the racial justice movement, or after the murder of George Floyd, changes in policing, and I really loved that job, and I loved getting to work with the men and women in that department, the people that I served in the city. But it was time for a change. I took some time off and was approached by the governor when my predecessor, Commissioner Nick Demmel, announced that he was going to be stepping down. And the governor's offer was a surprising one. It was not one that I had on my bingo card, as they say. I was excited by it though, and I have only become more so as the months have gone on. I've learned a lot about this profession in this industry, in corrections, that I only knew sort of at the very shallow part of the front end as a person who put people into the correctional system for many years. I've learned a lot about the things that this does. Any good cop will tell you that handcuffs are most of the time not the answer for any issue that the cop ends up encountering, whether they're called by a person in the public who needs police assistance or whether they encounter it just on patrol. Handcuffs are often not the solution, but sometimes they need to be. What's really wonderful about this profession is the degree to which it knows that the solution isn't necessarily the incarceration part, it's what we do during that incarceration part and the ways in which we can try to get at the behaviors that led a person to be incarcerated, so that those persons don't repeat those behaviors afterwards. We really are, in many ways, upstream of the next 911 call. We're downstream of the 911 call that resulted in that person being handcuffed and then going to court and then being convicted and then being sentenced to a term with us in the Department of Corrections. But we are upstream of the next call. And if we do it right, we can ensure that that next call never happens. And that's a really thrilling position to be in, having been the recipient of those calls for 20 plus years. And so that's been wonderful. most of all, it has been wonderful to meet the men and women that are in this department. I am daily struck by both their capability and their compassion and their confidence, and the ways in which they approach this job in really innovative and thoughtful manners. I spent the last week, it is National Correctional Officers Week, proclaimed by the president and also echoed by the governor. He made a proclamation this week. I have spent the week traveling to all 6 of our facilities around the state, put a lot of miles on a state fleet vehicle, and have been able to talk to our staff at each of those facilities, also talk to people who are incarcerated at each of those facilities. And it has been really rewarding to be able to do that, and to touch base with all those folks. I see my job as being the person who carries their water and tries to tell the public about the good work they do. In many respects, corrections is an out of sight, out of mind kind of endeavor. We don't really want to think about the people that we send there. We don't really want to think about what's there. We just sort of, okay, we address this problem. They were arrested. They're incarcerated. Let's not worry about it until maybe they get out at some point. But our job is absolutely to do that. And the people in our department do it really well. And I'm eager to be able to carry that voice for them, and also to be able to get them the things that they need, and especially working with folks like you. So I don't want to keep going on and on. I'd love if there are any questions about the resume or about this job and what I've seen in it so far. I'd be happy to take those questions.
Do we have a resume?
Yes. Do you need it?
I just wanted to make sure we have one.
Do you have questions?
Yeah, I'll just jump in terms of, so you've been at the job for 8 months. So what are your top, say, 5 priorities on what needs to be done with DOC?
Yeah, great question. Staffing is number one. We need to restaff. The next piece is our capacity issues. So staffing, of course, I could go on about that at length. There's so many pieces to that, but we continue to be understaffed, particularly in our very most frontline positions, which are our Correctional Officer 1 and Correctional Officer 2, and our Correctional Facilities Supervisors, the CFSSs. Those 3 ranks are the ones that have the most day-to-day impact on the people who are incarcerated with us, and we are not as staffed as we need to be in those ranks. We're doing better in our 12 probation and parole offices, also very important, but they are staffed in a way that's okay right now. Our central office, where incredible thinking and innovation gets done, is also decently staffed at the moment. It is really in our facilities that we're seeing that crunch, and we need to work on it. The next piece is a flip side of that, which is the number of people who are with us. We have no control over the number of people who are sentenced to a term of incarceration with the Vermont Department of Corrections. That is a function of the conduct that those people in which those people engage, and then the court process, and then a sentence. But once they come to us, it's incumbent on us to treat them compassionately and to make certain that we care for them, and to make certain that we provide them every opportunity to improve and address the things that got them there. The more people that we have in our custody, the more challenging that becomes. And right now, we do not have sufficient space for the total number of people who are in our custody. And so that is a challenge for us. How are we going to address that? Are we merely going to wait for these numbers to come down and hope that they do? And I don't know. I think we're pretty right-sized right now insofar as the number of people who are in our custody. It is much lower than it has been in the past, but significantly higher than it was a few short years ago, owing to an artificial exodus that was induced by the pandemic. I don't believe that artificial exodus was to the benefit of our communities. I think a number of people that were ultimately released because they had low-level crimes, and the risk of keeping them in a congregate setting during a pandemic that was a virus that was easily communicable and could be deadly outweighed the benefits of keeping them incarcerated. But it was not to the benefit of our communities. We've seen real upticks in crime over the past several years. I think we're on the downside of that, which is good, but I don't think that necessarily going below the current headcounts that we have is is feasible or advisable. I think we're at a fair level right now based on the incidence of crime in our communities and the population that we have inside. But we don't have enough space for the people that we currently have. And so we do need to address that and figure out how we're going to do that. That would be the next piece. The other pieces are then how do we then improve what we do with people while they're inside, and continuing to innovate on our programming is a really important piece of what I see as my objectives. There's a lot to build on there. I really do have to give, with regard to navigating the pandemic, not all credit, but a great deal of credit, because he had a team that he led, but a great deal of credit goes to my predecessor, Jim Baker. With regard to the things that we're doing that are innovative about how to care for the people in our custody, a great deal of credit goes to my immediate predecessor, Nick Demmel. And I want to build on those things that are there. Partnerships with the Community College of Vermont, movements around bringing more locally sourced food to the tables inside, so that we can not only feed the people in our custody, but our staff eat those meals too. Ways in which we can continue to improve on wellness, continue to maximize the staffing that we do have, particularly if some of these levels are not the levels that we want, but maybe closer than we would like to the levels that we are going to see in the foreseeable future, these headcount levels. And that includes innovative things around how to make the most of the staff that we have, technological shifts, et cetera. And so building on work that's been done there is a goal of mine. And then we also have a lot of things that we could do internally with regard to policy to ensure that we are being as fair as possible with both the people that we have in our custody and the processes by which we hold them accountable, but also the processes by which we hold accountable our employees. I think we take too long on our disciplinary processes right now. And that's something that we have control over along with our partners at the Department of Human Resources, DHR, which is under a separate secretary and agency, but we work closely with them. We need to figure out how to streamline those processes, because we frequently have situations in which people have been in the limbo of a disciplinary process longer than they ought to have been. That's not a way to maintain wellness for that individual, nor for the people around that individual who say, why haven't they been back? And why, that affects everybody, ripples out. So that's a piece of internal policy that I think we could work on. That's not, I think you said 6 or,
I
7,
said 5,
but I think I got 4 or 5. So yeah, I don't need to go, anyway.
I'll point out you didn't mention specifically the women's prison in that list. And I think that everyone here understands that that's a priority. It was sort of included in the containment one. I just want to switch back at you on that.
I appreciate that. And that's deserved.
And the other thing I'm going to push back on is you said that staffing is the main priority. That you can't give us any sort of guidance.
That's fair.
And we want that. And I presume that Joint Legislative Justice is kind of pushing on that over the offset. So, I did have one other question, but I may save that to the end. Sure. It's about your resume.
Okay,
It's a softball.
sure.
So we'll keep on that one.
No
Oh,
problem.
interesting. Well, that'll keep us alert.
We do have staff, we do have plans. Director Summer was just at Northern filming work there with staff there so that we can send out a message about how staff feels there, how they are working in order to try to increase the pool of applicants to that facility. That facility is by far our most pressed facility right now with regard to staffing. And we do have plans about how to improve advertising there. There is a new there's a new facility experience officer there. That's a position that exists at each of the facilities. A person who is responsible for recruitment, retention, and retention, of course, is about how the staff currently feel. Recruitment is about how you both share that message about how they currently feel with new prospects. Incredibly important role. Also, again, credit to my predecessor. We have a new one at Northern in order to try to really double down on new ideas, working with places that have been quite successful in that. Northwest right now is staffed quite well. Because of that, we are anticipating a solid academy class at Southern. They have been doing some really good work with regard to their recruitment and retention efforts. And so sharing that with the staff and the team at Northern is really important. It's also run by an executive director, Jim Rice, who oversees overall recruitment. Those facility experience supervisors work with his team out of our academy and our training and our operational training component. They're very tuned into this. We actually have a meeting with our team at Northern this coming week in order to really dig into what are we seeing there in really granular ways. So you're correct. I did not share that specifically in the remarks.
I'll be honest, to kind of say,
That's fair. That's fair. And I also will admit, yes,
Yeah, good for us.
I did mention our overall need for improved facility, but that is most pressing at the women's facility. I was there this morning. I spent the morning at CRCF with our partners in buildings and general services, looking at the current facility and what can be done there, because we are not going to get a new facility in the next 2 years, no matter what we do. We want one. We desperately need it. We are working on sites that have been proposed to us and assessing those sites and really digging into what our next steps are to get a new facility built. But we have to address the current facility and its deficiencies. I spent the morning doing exactly that, touring the entirety of it with members of the PTA. So while I didn't say it, and I thank you for giving me the opportunity to say it, these are absolutely things that we are invested in.
Well, that's important. That's why this committee put in additional funds.
Yes.
All right. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
And I understand the limitations by staffing and budget and so forth, but one of the things I see we really want to be doing is setting up the inmates for success when they walk out the door. Otherwise, it's just a revolving door. You're seeing them come back in. And so I'd be very interested as we move forward is what's the plans, what's the needs to actually set these people up for success once they are released.
Yeah, I think we make improvements at that all the time. Sometimes they're incremental, sometimes they're larger. A simple example would be new rules around ensuring that we provide identification for people when they are getting out. I had a long conversation with one young man at Northwest who was asking for exactly that. He was also asking for something that used to be called gate money, where money was given to people depending on how they've been incarcerated. That's not something we can currently afford to do in the same way. But can we ensure that, you've got this ID? Can we try to put them in positions to be able to have all the pieces in place in order for them to succeed upon release? Yeah, we learn what those are incrementally. We've been able to encourage people to continue to participate in the political process while incarcerated. We've been able to encourage people to continue to get education while incarcerated. We've definitely doubled down on the need for medical treatment around substance abuse that goes beyond the ameliorative effects of medically assisted treatment like buprenorphine or methadone or other things that are really designed to address the physical craving around drugs. But how do we address the underlying causes that often result in addiction and struggle with this disease? We are working on enhanced inpatient, what we call enhanced outpatient treatment in other places, but inpatient treatment for us. I visited the room in which we're doing that at CRCF. We are also doing it at Northwest. That includes an expansion of our contract with our healthcare provider, WellPath, in order to provide a level of therapeutic treatment, group sessions, one-on-one sessions if necessary, that go beyond the medicine that takes, colloquially takes the edge off the drug and the need for the drug, but instead gets it. Why, what are these? How do I improve my ability to avoid these cravings and sometimes the situations that lead to the use of these substances? How do I do it beyond just getting at the sense of of the actual physical nature of the addiction?
Okay, so can you talk about programming and career and technical education? Because that's where I see a big problem there.
Sure.
And that's also something in the print surveys. It's obvious that there are folks who want to learn and to be busy too and to be useful.
Yeah.
And that is not happening at a level that it needs to be.
No, it's not. Those surveys are really helpful. Those two are an example of some innovations that were put in place by my predecessor that we are keeping going. We're rolling out Prin in some new facilities as well, and in an effort to continue to hear from our population. And we are absolutely looking at those. We recognize too that the numbers are never. We have a population of people who are in a position they don't want to be in. We have a population of people who oftentimes are not as well equipped as people who don't end up in prison to address the challenges they've dealt with in life. There is a greater percentage and sort of tilt towards a victim mentality in people that are incarcerated. You can hear it from them. I read that as a grain of salt to be taken with the results of the surveys, but the surveys still speak to us with regard to how people feel about their condition and how we're working to ensure that we're giving them everything that we can give them. Among those are a greater percentage, a greater likelihood towards education and a greater amount of opportunities to get career-oriented skill sets. That is a challenge for us because we have lost the ability to compete as an industry with regard to, for example, building things in facilities. We still maintain our license plate division and are able to do that. It's a very small overall number of the people that are incarcerated with us. But we long ago lost the ability to compete economically in the marketplace against furniture that is modular or built more cheaply in other ways. The ability to do woodworking and in facility industry of that kind has not been something that we've been able to keep going, and that's been several years that we haven't had a robust prison industry. As a result, some of the equipment that went with that was sold off and divested. We continue to have small numbers of people that we teach around issues around woodworking, etc. We have tools. I met recently with the person who runs our prison industries and also the education that goes along with that to talk about things that we can do. I would like to expand some of the services that we still provide in-house that include, for example, the creation of plaques that honor our own staff. For example, we'll do that for somebody who's retiring after a long career. I think that's something that we could offer other parts of the state government. And that would be a way to keep people inside invested, both in learning and in using skills and developing skills that could be applicable in the outside world once they're free. But we also do it with, we have some welding simulators and tools like that are in our possession. I've attended CCD classes around computer skills and teaching people who are incarcerated simple things like Microsoft Office skills and how to work with those tools that are so instrumental to almost any job that you have these days. And so increasing that and the access to that is really important to us. But a challenge is the ability to apply these skills while in custody. We don't have as many opportunities for that because we don't have the ability to make use of the skill sets in a way that is commercial.
Yeah, so a couple of I'll keep this as a question. Does the thing have to be commercially viable for you to do it in a prison? Because it seems to me that there is an inherent benefit to the inmates getting skills.
Yeah.
So why is there a mandate that it has to be financially beneficial? Why do they have to make money to
Because then the money has to come from somewhere.
Exactly.
So for us to be able to afford either the equipment or for that matter, the materials that are used in many of the things that have traditionally been prison venue of education, which often include, I mean, just a simple point, wood, good wood to make furniture or to make items. We can't, that is a component of cost that we have not been able to maintain as we face tighter and tighter budgets.
Right. And so that leads me to another question, which is, I completely agree with you that our populace in general doesn't know about the prisons. And many times they just assume that our prisons are good and healthy because Vermont has that reputation. When you go into, you know, that's not the case. I wish it were, but do you have any thoughts about communicating with the public about what's going on and getting support from the public to improve not just the conditions, but the opportunities for these folks?
I don't have specific thoughts on that. I think that is a worthy avenue of exploration and absolutely a worthy endeavor. We are always open to additional partnerships with various parts of the community. We do publicize the existing partnerships, including the ones, for example, with CCV. We are always happy to have the public come in and take a look at how things are. It's not a closed door with regard to the facilities. There are restrictions. They are closed doors, literally, of course, which I see your head tilt there. They are literally closed doors. We also have security rationales for not just inviting the public or the media in without any kinds of caveats. But the notion of not sharing the programs that we are conducting or the successes that we have is not a notion that I would advocate. I want to share those successes. I want to share our programming. I want to share the things that are done. And I would love to have additional partners come and say, this is something we can do. One of the challenges we have is that many of our facilities are relatively far flung with regard to population centers. CRCF, for example, does have a pretty robust participation by members of the community in a variety of programs, from things as seemingly silly but really important as pickleball, to things like our Kids Apart program with Lund. The Lund Center is right around the corner from the women's facility in South Burlington, and the ability for it to oversee and facilitate a program that keeps mothers in touch with their children while the mothers are incarcerated and really maintains strong family bonds, an incredibly important component of a person's eventual release. It is an easier prospect for that to happen there than it would be at, say, Southern, which is a little bit farther from one than CRCF is. Being Southern is in Springfield,
Right.
And that's a 2-hour drive from South Burlington. So getting volunteers to those locations is a challenge for us. We run into this challenge, for example, with our religious services. We do not provide any religious services, but we would not say no to any religious service. And yet our ability to staff, for example, imams at all of our facilities is very circumscribed. So to the extent that this is a public hearing and potentially someone might be listening, I would love if we could find an imam that would be willing to travel to Newport and work in the northern facility, for example. It is easier to find Christian denominations. They tend to be closer, but we have a number of people in our custody who are practicing the Islamic faith, and how do we get services for those? That's about collaboration with the community,
Right.
and certainly publicizing those gaps so that we can try to fill them. I would be a proof of.
Okay. And then this might be something that we've talked about in the future, but you said that we're at a fair level of people incarcerated. That's a really interesting statement. And it's all, I mean, there's all kinds of implications to that. And because of your experience as a police officer and a police chief, I'm sure that is part of why you're thinking that, or that's your assessment.
Although I did precede it by making clear that we don't have any control over that.
No, I understand.
And I don't want to, at the Department of Corrections, I don't want control over.
Well, you
how many
shouldn't
nor
have
should
that actually, but you can inform us and inform the rest of the legislature about, how you think things should be too. And you certainly need to inform us, and I think you have been, about issues and challenges. It's not that you're completely inert or.
No.
Yeah,
No, but I don't control the number of
No.
people who are sent to us.
I understand.
Nor with a very limited ability do we control the number of people when those people depart from us.
Right,
And that too is as it should be. There are sentencing rules, and then there is the ability to assure that the person is going to be successful upon release. And that is our single most important goal, is the safety of the community and the success of the individual, as we assess whether or not to recommend, for example, to the parole board. But the parole
Right.
board's decisions are independent. Sentencing decisions are independent.
right, which is, that's the system.
Yeah.
All right. Any other?
Rob had,
Oh, yeah, I wanna know why you like clip-on ties so much and why you're not wearing one right now. Actually, I think I know.
Police officers wear clip-on ties, and they wear clip-on ties when they do. Very few officers actually wear ties anymore. They've moved to these, external carry vests, which are much healthier for them. But I do not look as sharp as what I think I came up with but what I came up wearing in the New York City Police Department. They only moved to external carries very, very recently, long after I had departed them. We wore vests underneath shirts that were button-down shirts that included a clip-on tie, and that was a dress. And why? Because you don't want a tie that, like this one, could be used as a threat against you. And I used that as I had a lieutenant who once said, "I've got a master's degree and I'm wearing a clip-on tie," and the juxtaposition of those two things led to a speech that I was really, really privileged to get to give when I graduated from a master's degree program myself, and got the opportunity to be the graduate orator and give a speech about that, but as a metaphor for service, as a metaphor for asking those students that were all there on graduation day to contemplate doing things that might not have been the norm. If there are ideas about what you should do with this degree that you've gotten, make me think. And as I said at the very beginning, I truly believe in public service and the idea of serving my fellow citizens. And I ask them to contemplate that in ways great and small.
that was not the question that I thought that you were going to ask.
No, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
or- Yeah,
Thank you for agreeing to take the job.
it's one of the two, I had heard that it was the largest, department, but it's neck and neck with DCF.
Yes,
So,
sir.
I mean, it's a tremendous, responsibility.
Yeah.
And sounds like you fully understand it.
Well, I certainly understand that it's a great responsibility. I don't fully understand the job yet. I'm really blessed by the fact that there's so many people who do. Deputy Commissioner Calver, for example, has, more than 2 decades in this work, and knows everything about the department and its budget, and is an incredible, partner to me, a peer. And there are others who have similar long experiences. And I'm really grateful for all of them. But I do recognize the scope of it. It is authorized headcount. Yeah, DCF has more temp employees. It's
Right.
difficult. But authorized headcount, we are usually considered to be the largest authorized headcount department in the state. We're not the biggest budget because we don't pass through a lot of money. We're all general fund, as you all well know. But it is a big budget,
It's a-
and it is a big responsibility also because there are other custodial departments in our government, but not custodial to the scope of this one. We have 1,650 people whose lives are literally in our hands.
Yeah.
And that is a tremendous obligation.
I think we'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thanks. Okay. Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Well, I'm assuming we are voting favorably.
Yes.
That's,
Yes,
you ready?
okay,
So Senator Benson, yes. Senator Ingram. Yes. Senator Major.
Yes.
Senator Plunkett.
Yes.
And Senator Harris.
yes.
We are, and Senator Major is the reporter, is that right?
No.
No? Senator Plunkett.
if Senator
is the-
Plunkett
Oh,
would be able to
sure.
do it, that would be great. Yeah, I'm gonna overlook.
So we are 5-0-0.
And we'll get that, it'll probably be next week. It should be next week. Okay. Thank you. We take it to upstairs, but in the meantime, I think we will, does anyone have any